Hi, my dearest family. Here is your shortened version of your weekly forecast, starting on the 9th of December until the 17th of December. So, we are going to be walking you through one by one what exactly happens on the sky. And if you would like to gain a bit more clarity, for example, about how it might be affecting you, then you can actually join my YouTube membership program, or there is kind of like a Patreon version on my website as well. And then you get about 15 to 20 minutes breakdown each week. And also, I would like you to join me on 27th of December. I'm going to be holding a charity webinar, and it's going to be about oppositions. But this is going to be a very special, unique webinar because what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be sharing the research that I did about oppositions and how it is connected to the Occidental and the Oriental part of the opposition, and therefore most likely which planet is going to be affecting you more. Because one key factor with oppositions is that you are always focusing on one side more than the other. But how can you decide which one you are focusing on? So that's going to be one of the ways how I'm going to be describing this to you. And also, I'm going to be looking at it as one side of the opposition is usually acting like Mars, and the other side of the opposition usually acts like Saturn. So we can start reading the chart together. We're going to be looking at as many examples as possible. This is going to be about a 2 hour long webinar. And basically, what you can do is you can choose how much you would like to donate. The minimum amount is going to be $5. But let's start with our weekly energy pattern. So basically, we've got um, 9th of December, Apollo goes retrograde in the sign of Leo. Now, I did make a video about that because Apollo spends in the sign of Leo approximately about 9 months. So you might want to be revisiting that video. Just type it into YouTube, Apollo AstroViktor, and then it should be popping up. It will go retrograde on the 27th degree of Leo. Then on the 10th of December, we've got Mercury in Scorpio opposes Uranus in Taurus. Then it trines Neptune retrograde in Pisces as well. On the 11th, Venus is going to square the nodes, the North Node in Pisces, South Node in the sign of Virgo. Venus is in the sign of Sagittarius, by the way. And Vesta will make a sextile to the North Node at the same time. On the 12th of December, Mercury will sextile Pluto. Mercury is actually back into the sign of Sagittarius, of course, but it is still in shadow zone. On the 14th, Mars in Sagittarius will square Saturn and Neptune, basically, while the Sun in Sagittarius will have a trine to Chiron, while Mars in Sagittarius will quincunx Uranus. And then on the 15th, Mars will be entering the sign of Capricorn. On the 16th, Sun in Sagittarius will be squaring Saturn, and then later on Neptune as well. And on the very same day, Sun will make a conjunction to Juno. So these are the energy patterns that we are going to be discussing. So let's get going. Well, you know what? Between the December 8th to the 10th, it looks like that we are pretty much kind of like doing a bit of a mind shift. So what exactly happens is that we've got Mars in Sagittarius, and then it's in a zigzag square to Saturn. So the key words there is that we're going to have to do a reality check. We're going to have disciplined action. We're going to have to kind of like create boundaries, or it could even indicate certain type of spiritual frustrations as well. So it's kind of like the boundary of action versus the limits. There is a frustration going on here, because I'm hitting certain type of walls while I'm trying to, for example, protect my freedom, or I'm trying to standing up for a certain type of truth. So it's a frustration because it's a square. So you might want to use that frustration to refine your goals. And of course, Saturn tells Mars, listen, you need to be careful. You need to be patient. Success doesn't come that easily. Of course, this Mars is out of bound right now, so it wants everything immediately. Then we've got the 9th of December when actually Apollo goes stationary retrograde, like I said, on 27th degree of Leo. So you will see that the moon is actually highlighting Apollo as well because the moon will be around too. And this might be telling us that we're going to have to be reviewing our confidence. We have to reevaluate our creative inspirations. It's kind of like checking how radiant I am. Apollo, which rules creativity, prophecy, light as well, turning retrograde is asking you to turn your attention inwards, to examine where you truly shine, what you truly want to create, what you are kind of like passionate about. And on the 10th of December, Mercury is in Scorpio, opposes Uranus. The key word there is that something shocking is happening. So we get a sudden shocking piece of news, or we become mentally rebellious, or we've got some breakthrough ideas also. It is definitely challenging our fixed beliefs because we are talking about two fixed signs, and these two are kind of like the most stubborn one of all. Our way of thinking becomes more revolutionary, especially when it comes to topics of self-worth, finances, or expect unexpected truth, mental upheavals, or even sudden, irreversible changes in in connection to money and your self-worth. And then on the 10th of December, at the very same time, Mercury will be in trine to Neptune as well, which is very much about having to listen to your intuition. And you're going to have to understand why, for example, certain mental challenges are happening to you. You're going to have that psychic insights. You're going to have to find meaning in these confusions. So we had a shock happening with Uranus. Maybe we gained a deep insight, and now it's time to spiritually understand what exactly happened. And this is going to be helping you to process the news with certain type of empathy. Now, on the 11th of December, Venus in Sagittarius will be in square to the nodes. And this is going to be the aspect of the crisis of values, commitment versus freedom, balancing faith and service, karmic connections. So relationships and finances face kind of like a turning point. Maybe it feels like that you have to choose between the easy, practical comfort, that's Virgo South Node, and a value system based on a greater faith and spiritual meaning. And that's the Sagittarius and the Pisces North Node. On the very same day, Vesta is actually in sextile to the North Node as well, and therefore it's in trine to the South Node. And please note that the Moon is actually highlighting the South Node as well on the very same day. So Vesta provides a helpful grounded tool here. It says, let's get dedicated. Let's dedicate to a goal, your value crisis, which is the Venus and Venus squaring the nodes, is resolved by devoting yourself practically to your spiritual calling, devoting yourself to kind of let go of having to be perfect, having to be a controlling, maybe it's the controlling element of your feelings, and that's the moon. being connected to the South Node as well, or having to kind of like listen to your inner critics all the time. And I feel like the Mercury and Pluto sextile the following day is going to be actually helping you on that too. Because this is the aspect of deep insights. This is the empowerment of the mind, empowering communication. It's about clarity. It's about telling the truth. So this is also talking to us about psychological understanding, searching for the meaning to life, searching for the meaning of those powerful insights that we might have gained, for example, during the Mercury and Uranus opposition. The mind is actually very focused on those deep thoughts. And we use, or maybe you are having a very empowering conversation with a friend of yours about the future, and then it gives you a lot of new perspective. So it is talking to us about a mental shift because Mercury just changed sign as well. It is still in the shadow zone. It's going to be in the shadow zone until the sixth degree is reached. But this is already talking to us about a mental shift. Maybe you are ready to plan. Maybe you have got these big ideas that are returning to you. You are ready to plan the future. And the communication is getting more and more direct. But since Mercury is in the shadow zone, be careful that those ambitious plans are having to be fully reviewed, though. Now we can see that from the 14th of December onwards, well, Mars is going to be in square to Neptune. And the energy level can be dropping with that. Or the actions that are happening are confusing. It's kind of like having a spiritual fatigue. Or we are so kind of like idealizing a goal. But potentially this might indicate lack of clear boundaries. So Mars is, imagine that we have got this soldier who wants to shoot someone down, but there is a huge fog there. So you might feel like, because you ran into certain type of blockages already with Mars hitting Saturn, and then now you run into this fog. So it feels like that I'm unable to move forward. I'm unable to pursue a goal, or I have pursued a goal that is kind of like a scam or is just an illusion. So this is an aspect where we're going to have to sleep on something. We're going to have to rest. We're going to have to reevaluate what direction we want to be going. We also have got the Sun in trine to Chiron as well on the very same day, uh, which is about healing who we are. It's also talking to us about that we're going to have to be able to heal a part of ourselves that, the sun represents the final destination of our life. We have to become the sun sign in our chart. So firstly, we're going to have to get inspired. We're going to have to overcome personal limitations. We're going to have to radiate that positive energy. Basically, your conscious will might find it easier to take a healing leap of faith. And you can use this newly gained clarity about what exactly that comfort zone is so that you can kind of hush away the Neptunian fog. Yes, Mars at the same time is in quincunx to Uranus, and the quincunx is always a representation of frustration or adjustments that needs to be done. So it indicates that you see Mars is actually squaring Neptune. So, we are in the middle of the foggy area. And Uranus is telling us that we need a sudden idea, a sudden kind of recognition that our actions needs to be adjusted. Because it's in the sign of Taurus, the change has to be practical. Rather than kind of like becoming so rebellious about it and fighting with no kind of like, we don't know what we fight for. What if we try to reroute our energy? It says that our action must make a difficult shift to accommodate the unexpected. And maybe these are connected to resources, or your stability is kind of like shaken up a little bit, shook up a little bit. But then on the 15th, Mars is going to be entering the sign of Capricorn, which is the exalted position of Mars. So Mars gained those spiritual insights. It took a bit of a rest, and now it's ready to take a disciplined action. It is ready to focus on what truly matters. The efforts are going to be structural. It has an idea of what the long-term goals are. So we get serious about it. We were super enthusiastic before with that Mars. Our enthusiasm ran into a wall, Saturn, after we kind of got depleted. But we gained certain type of sudden insights with that Uranus. Now I'm ready to move from that enthusiastic, truth-seeking Mars in Sagittarius to a practical, strategic approach. And it kind of indicates that I'm ready to take, I'm ready to get back in the saddle, basically. I'm ready to take charge. However, at the same time, the Sun is in square to Saturn. And of course, it's going to start squaring Neptune as well at the same time. Saturn is, with the Sun, what did we do? We said with the Sun, which was, for example, in a trine to Chiron, that we started healing the self. We started becoming who we are. We started to get inspired, and then we are overcoming our personal limitations. But it looks like we still run into certain type of limitations, or it gets tested whether we have gone towards the right vision. And because Neptune is coming up later on as well, which is kind of like an illusion in purpose, or I'm not too sure if I took the right, or if I made the right decision. There's a lack of clarity there. I mean, Saturn wanted us to create these spiritual boundaries, but Neptune is kind of like dissolving them. So it looks like that the boundaries that we have created or started to create is not enough, and maybe we need to couple them up a little bit. Or it's kind of like you get confusing visions or confusing messages from others as well. So the ego is getting a little bit confused there with Neptune later on. And of course, Saturn is testing whether that ego is working into the right direction. But you can see that the Sun, which is happening on the next day, is making the conjunction to Juno. And that is about defining our relationship, defining the purpose of a relationship, or it's about conscious commitment to something, finding meaningful partnership or finding meaning in our commitments. So again, it is somehow asking us to have a look at whether we have committed to the right thing. So we've got 10 day. We've got, very briefly, I've described all these planetary energies. So maybe we want to integrate all of it. And it looks like that this 10-day period is a journey from certain type of mental shock to a foggy illusion, but it's culminating in disciplined commitments. So we had the Mercury, Uranus, Neptune triad to start with, which looks like it's a psychological roller coaster. Expect the unexpected. We get disruptive news, but followed immediately by this profound sense of knowing or acceptance. The universe delivers a shock, then the spiritual wisdom is coming with it as well. So we start understanding why we had to go through that shocking piece of information. Then we've got phase two, which is very much connected to the nodes. So Venus will be squaring the nodes, which we have to make a decision about relationships and finances. So the key here is that Vesta provides a sextile. That's going to be our solution, and Vesta is connected to focus. So the way out of the crisis is to commit your energy to a high-minded, compassionate vision. moving past the fear-based or overly critical way of thinking, which is your Virgo South node. And remember that the moon was highlighting that as well. Then we've got phase three, which is the fog of war type of energy. So Mars is squaring Neptune. The Sun is squaring Saturn and Neptune as well at the same time. So our actions are confusing. This is telling us not to sign a contract or not necessarily starting aggressive campaigns, for example. The purpose is a little bit hazy here. Maybe we have to be avoiding life-altering decisions. The ego and the sense of self are kind of like operating without clear boundaries here. And I think we can use the Sun Chiron trine, when that fog rolls in, maybe we can use that to retreat and focus on, on a courageous healing action, which is going to benefit your sense of self and is going to try to give you a clear point of reference when everything else feels super vague in your life. And it really feels like the last part of the week is about grounding your energy. I feel like actually Mars moving into the sign of Capricorn might be the saving grace because after all that Saturnian or Sagittarian squares, Mars in Capricorn is going to give you the energy to structure every single needs of yours. So channel the motivation into something concrete, long-term goals, particular professional matters. And the Sun conjunct Juno, I think it might be perfect to solidify your commitments, either in a partnership or in a contractual agreement, because your will, which is the Sun, is aligned with the need for security and purpose. For example, in relationships, and that's Juno. So I think we're gonna have to slow our pace drastically, especially from about the December 14th to the 16th. Use the shock of that 10th to guide the disciplined action after the 15th. Somehow this week demands you to trade enthusiastic kind of like ideas for something practical, something that you can commit to, or something that ethically sounds uh, steep, not steep the word, sound. So this is pretty much how I feel about the upcoming week's energy. Sometimes I'm discussing, like 9, 10 days. Sometimes I'm going to be discussing just 7 days or 5 days. It really depends on the overall kind of like if we have got certain type of aspect patterns, of course, because I am a firm believer that there is no point in breaking up the aspect patterns. So I want to give you some scenarios as well, potentially how it might be working out or playing out in your life. But one of the igniting or the initiation point of the entire chart is the Mercury-Uranus opposition, of course. That's kicks off the week, right? So don't forget that I'm going to be doing the charity related opposition webinar. I hope to see you there. It's for Christmas, and let's buy some Christmas presents to those kids. So it's going to be for a children's charity. All the details are available on my website. But let's have a look at a couple of scenarios at how I can imagine this playing out. So, for example, let's look at it from a career point of view. We've got a career ambition, but we've got our ethical boundaries as well. So imagine that you are super enthusiastic about landing a new client or starting a project. Now that's Mars in Sagittarius. But maybe you run into these bureaucratic delays or kind of like a boss who is a bit of a pain in the butts. So these are certain type of frustrating obstacles. Those are the Mars and Saturn combinations. And when you finally proceed with this client or project, you feel a sudden drop in your motivation. And maybe it feels like that, this project is conflicting with your ethical or spiritual beliefs. And that's the Mars and Neptune energy. So, when the frustration hits, don't push back. Instead, utilize, the wisdom from the prior week when we had the Grand Trine, to kind of audit your plan's foundation. Where is the weak point in that structure? And that would be Saturn's question here. And when the motivation starts fading or the goal looks illusory, don't quit, but maybe just pause and use that sun trine to Chiron. Does pursuing this specific goal heal my self-worth? How is it gonna lift me up? Or is it just chasing a dream? And once Mars enters Capricorn, we can maybe re-engage with the goal, but we have to reframe it. Let's focus on the most concrete, realistic steps. Let's look at it from a relationship point of view. I mean, this could be, commitments, relationship, or sudden revelations. Of course, this is going to be involving the Venus, the nodes, and Juno especially. Maybe you are in a free-spirited connection, but you feel this growing tension about the future direction. And that could be, for example, with Venus and the nodes squaring. And maybe there is a conversation that is taking place and forces you to choose between whether to continue this kind of low commitment relationship or pursuing a partnership based on deep shared spiritual or compassionate values. So this is how Venus has to be making a decision. And the action plan would be here is that we can use Vesta in Capricorn, which is also in sextile to the nodes, right? So it gives you the tools for commitment. And instead of choosing based on anxiety, make a disciplined, sacred vow to prioritize your highest values. And that would be Pisces North Node. This decision must be made with intention rather than impulse. And then we can use the Mercury Pluto sextile to have that very deep transformative conversation, and you articulate, your shifts in your values. And then you can use the Sun and Juno conjunction to, especially after that fog cleared up, that yes, I want to be committing to, let's say, finding a new partnership, or I want to be committing to this existing partnership. Of course, this could be money related as well. So I'm sure you can put that into a money scenario. Or maybe you get a unexpected piece of information, like an unexpected communication, which is inviting you to do a bit of a self-reflection. So maybe you have been investigating a psychological matter. That's Mercury in Scorpio. And you get that sudden piece of information that completely overturns a fixed belief of yours that you held about a practical matter. So, because Apollo goes retrograde in Leo, maybe we're going to have to take a moment before the shock hits to review our intellectual and creative identity. Like, am I shining authentically or am I just performing, basically? And that answer you gave yourself honestly is going to prepare you for that challenge. And when the shock of Uranus opposition hits, don't react publicly. Maybe you immediately want to pivot to that Mercury Neptune instead. um, which says that instead of fighting the new shocking reality, maybe seek the compassionate spiritual meaning behind it. Like, why did I need to hear this truth now? What illusion does it try to break? And once Mercury re-enters Sagittarius, you know, use that truth to fuel your communication. Maybe you are not ready for a final announcement just yet, because Mercury is still in shadow zone, but you can confidently or strategically begin planning the new path forward. So, guys, I hope this weekly forecast helps, and I hope to see you on the 27th of my on my charity webinar. Or if you need more insights about how this might be playing out in your life, please join my YouTube membership program, or you can do that on my website as well if you feel safer there. And you will get 15 to 20 minutes breakdown each week about your energy patterns. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye bye.